and welcome. It's Global News on Zoom Nigeria. Thanks for joining me. The headline says Russian forces destroyed Ukrainian drones. Japan faces harassment in China amidst Fukushima. US to increase use of autonomous systems. Guatemala presidential victory certified. And Haitian police probe deadly church-led protest. On Russia-Ukraine war, according to reports, Russian air defenses shot down 3 Ukrainian drones flying over the Russian regions of Tula and Belgorod, the Ministry of Defense said in the newest attempted attacks on targets inside Russian territory. 2 drones were destroyed by air defenses over the Tula region south of Moscow, the Defense Ministry said in a statement early on Tuesday morning. On Monday, another drone was destroyed by air defense forces over the Belgorod region, which borders Ukraine, at about 11 p.m. Moscow time, the ministry said in a separate statement. The ministry did not say whether there had been damage or casualties as a result of the drone attacks. Moscow and other Russian regions have been rocked by a barrage of Ukrainian drone raids in recent weeks, with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky saying late last month that the war will be returning to Russia. Gradually, the war is returning to the territory of Russia, to its symbolic centers and military bases, and this is an inevitable, natural, and absolutely fair process, he said at the time. Last week, Ukrainian drones continually raided Russian territory, leading to numerous temporary suspensions of flights at Moscow's 3 major airports, Sheremetyevo, Dedovo, and Vnukovo. On Monday, the Defense Ministry also reported that 2 Russian jet fighters were scrambled to intercept 2 United States reconnaissance drones that were on a flight path over the Black Sea. The 2 U.S. drones, a Reaper and a Global Hawk, were carrying out aerial reconnaissance in the region of the Crimean Peninsula near the Black Sea, according to the ministry. After the arrival of Russian warplanes, the drones changed their direction of flight and left the areas where aerial reconnaissance was being conducted, the ministry added. On Sunday, Russia said it has scrambled a fighter plane to stop a U.S. Air Force reconnaissance drone from crossing its borders over the Black Sea. Japan has said a brick was thrown at its embassy in Beijing and that its citizens in China were facing harassment since it started releasing wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear plants in the Pacific. China has been the most vocal opponent to the release plan, a major part of Japanese attempts to decommission the plant that was destroyed in the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. Japan has sought to reassure critics about the discharge, and the United Nations nuclear watchdog has said the process meets international standards, but Beijing remains unmoved. Last week, as the first water started to trickle into the ocean, China barred all Japanese seafood imports. Other countries have also ramped up inspections of Japanese aquatic products, while there have been protests in South Korea and Japan itself. Japan's foreign minister confirmed on Tuesday, according to reports, that a brick had been thrown at its embassy in Beijing and said embassy staff had been the aim of numerous crank calls originating in China. He called on Beijing to take measures to calm the situation. On Monday, a spokesman for China's foreign ministry said it was not aware of the matter when asked about the accusations of harassment at a regular briefing. China protects and ensures the safety and lawful rights and interests of foreign nationals in China in accordance with laws, Wang Wenbin said, before going on to chastise Japan over the water released. The water should be disposed of in a truly responsible way, he said. Japan started releasing over 500 Olympic swimming pools worth of treated and diluted wastewater from Fukushima on August 24th. The water used to cool the destroyed reactors is presently being kept in giant tanks around the site. All radioactive elements have been filtered out of the water with the exception of tritium, an isotope of hydrogen that is hard to remove but has been lessened to within safe limits. Tritium is also released by nuclear power stations during their normal operation, including by China. Now, within the next 2 years, the Pentagon plans to field numerous of drones and other high-tech military equipment as the United States military turns to autonomous systems to counter China's numerical edge in terms of personnel and weaponry, a senior defense official said. Kathleen Hicks, U.S. Deputy Secretary of Defense, told a military technology conference in Washington, D.C. on Monday that the imperative to to innovate rather was vital at a time of strategic competition with China, a rival whom he described as being very different from relatively slow and lumbering competitors the US faced during the Cold War. While US forces were engaged in fighting for 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan, the PRC, People's Republic of China, worked with emphasis and determination to build a modern military, carefully crafting it to blunt the operational advantages we've enjoyed for the decades, Hicks said in a speech. In a candid address that emphasized Washington's view of the military threat posed by China and its ability to outskill the US military, Hicks said the US maintained an advantage owing to its ability to imagine, create, and master the future character of warfare. Beijing's major military advantage is mass, more ships, more missiles, more people, she said, will counter the PLA's mass with mass of our own, but ours will be harder to plan for, harder to hit, harder to beat, she said, referring to the Chinese People's Liberation Army. The US intention is to field attractable autonomous systems at scale of many thousands in multiple domains within the next 18 to 24 months, Hicks said. Deploying autonomous systems in all domains will be less expensive and put fewer people in the line of fire, she added. We must ensure the PRC leadership wakes up every day, considers the risk of aggression, and concludes today is not the day, and not just today, but every day between now and 2027, now and 2035, now and 2049, and beyond, she said. Now moving to elections, Guatemala's top electoral tribunal has declared Bernardo Arevalo the winner of the country's presidential polls, but his presidency was plunged into uncertainty even before it had formally started after another government body suspended his seat. Movement Party Arevalo, the center-left son of an ex-president, won the second round run-off against former First Lady Sandra Torres in a landslide as Guatemalans voted in droves for change. The 64-year-old former diplomat secured 60.9% of the valid votes cast against 37.2% for the right-wing Torres, according to the official count. On Monday, officials from the Supreme Electoral Tribunal confirmed Arevalo as the winner and were then confronted with questions about a document from the electoral registry published in the media that ordered a temporary suspension of seats' legal registration. During the election campaign, one of the most tumultuous in the country's history, prosecutors have threatened to ban the party from the election, prompting an outcry among people in Guatemala and in the international community. These are the official results, and that's what counts in Guatemala, Tribunal Magistrate Gabriel Aguilera said. It is not clear what the suspension might mean for the president-elect and the closely 24 seat legislators who were elected to parliament. Arevalo is due to take office on January 14th. Tribunal head Irma Palencia said the Citizens Registry was a lower authority and that she had yet to be officially notified about the suspension order. She emphasized that Arevalo was formally the winner. The Electoral Registry moved to suspend seat after the Attorney General's office opened a probe into the party over alleged irregularities in the gathering of signatures for its formation. It has 3 days to challenge the suspension, with any appeal elevating the issue to the Supreme Electoral Tribunal. Some of the country's elites see the rise of Arevalo, who campaigned on social progress and against corruption, as a threat. The Organization of American States Human Rights Commission asked that Guatemala provide protection for Arevalo after reports emerged of a possible plot to kill him earlier this week. Moving ahead, the Haitian National Police have announced they will open an investigation into those responsible for a deadly incident on Saturday when a church leader led parishioners on an armed protest through a gun control area of capital Port-au-Prince. The Director General of the Police, Franz Elby, said the probe will help ensure that such irrational acts never occur again. The National Police condemns this regrettable tragedy and presents its sympathies to the families and loved ones of the victims, Elby said. He described how an immense crowd rallied behind religious leader Mackerel Zido over the weekend, wearing olive green uniforms and clothes emblazoned with his name in a press release on Monday. This spontaneous demonstration included hundreds of people, some of whom carried machetes and assault rifles. Once informed, Elby said the police took measures to avoid carnage by erecting a security perimeter and employing spokespeople to deter the protesters. However, the protesters quickly overcame the security measures established by law enforcement and were nevertheless able to arrive in the areas they desired to confront the members of said gang. He said, no official figure of the fatalities has been released, but police have reported several deaths and kidnappings as the gangs led by a man known as Jeff clashed with the protesters. Gangs have taken control of large sections of Port-au-Prince, with the United Nations approximating last December that up to 60% of the city was under their command. This has led to widespread violence and instability, with the United Nations documenting gross human rights abuses, including murder, sexual exploitation, and kidnapping. Hospitals have shorted in the wake of the gang-led violence, and nearly half the population faces severe food insecurity as the worsening security situation impedes humanitarian assistance. More story says US accuses Russia of intimidation. The United States has accused Russia of trying to intimidate and harass Washington's employees after reports from a former U.S. consulate worker was charged with collecting information on the war in Ukraine on behalf of Washington. Russia's FSB security service was quoted as saying that Robert Shunov, a Russian national, had supplied information to U.S. embassy staff in Moscow on how Russia's recruitment for the war in Ukraine was affecting political discontent inside Russia ahead of the country's 2024 presidential election. The charge of cooperation on a confidential basis with a foreign state carries a maximum prison sentence of 8 years in prison. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said in a statement on Monday that Russia's targeting of Mr. Shunov under the confidential cooperation statute only highlights the increasingly repressive actions the Russian government is taking against its own citizens. Miller said that Shunov provided services to the U.S. Embassy in Moscow in strict compliance with Russia's laws and regulations. We strongly protest the Russian security services' attempts furthered by Russia's state-controlled media to scare and harass our employees, Miller said in a statement, adding that Washington was aware that the FSB has also subpoenaed 2 diplomats working at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow linking to the case. Shunov, who has been under arrest since May, was employed by the U.S. Consulate General in the eastern Russian city of Vladivostok for over 25 years until Russia in 2021 ordered the termination of the U.S. mission's local staff. To help matters now, live worm found in Australian woman's brain, marking the first case of the infection in humans. A live parasitic worm has been found inside the brain of the 64-year-old Australian woman. The discovery was made by doctors and researchers at the Australian National University Anu and Canberra Hospital after they found a live 8 centimeter, 3.5 inches roundworm in the woman's brain. The Ophidascaris robertsi roundworm whose unusual host, is a carpet python who was pulled from the patient after brain surgery alive and wriggling. The worm's larva was also suspected to have infected all the organs in the woman's body, including her lungs and liver. This is the first ever human case of Ophidascaris to be described in the world. Sanjaya Sananyake, an expert on infectious disease at the Anu and Canberra Hospital, said in a statement, "To our knowledge, this is also the first case to involve the brain of any mammalian species, human or otherwise. Normally, the larvae from the roundworm are found in small mammals and marsupials, which are eaten by python, permitting the life cycle to complete itself in the snake." The researchers who published their findings in the emerging infectious disease journals said the woman possibly picked up the infection from the warrigal grains, a type of native grounds she collected near her home and then cooked. The grasses are a habitat for pythons who will have shed the parasite's eggs through their feces. Ophidascaris robertsi roundworms are common to carpet pythons and live in a python's esophagus and stomach. Described by Anu as incredibly resilient, roundworms can thrive in a wide range of environments. Now in Africa, France backs Bazoum, ECOWAS military intervention. Niamey and Paris differences seem irreconcilable. During a major foreign policy speech to ambassadors in Paris on Monday, French President Emmanuel Macron doubled down on his government's line regarding the junta. On Monday, Macron insisted that France will not change its position in condemning the coup and offered support to Mohamed Bazoum and ECOWAS. Our policy is the right one. It depends on the courage of President Mohamed Bazoum, the commitment of our diplomats, of our ambassador on the ground who is remaining despite pressure, Macron told a gathering of French ambassadors in the capital. In a letter on Friday, Sylvain Ita, French ambassador, was ordered to leave Niger within 48 hours from the Nigerian Foreign Ministry that accused him of ignoring an invitation for a meeting with the ministry. The letter also cited actions of the French government contrary to the interests of Niger. Niger's President Bazoum was ousted on July 26th. France, the Economic Community of West African States, and the United Nations, among others, have called for him to be reinstated. The de facto ruling CNSP have since the coup appointed a new government. Coup leader General Abdourahmane Tiani said the CNSP will return Niger to democratic rule within 3 years as he announced a national dialogue on August 19th. ECOWAS has hit the nation with sanctions, threatening to send troops. A spokesman for the French military on August 10th said any cooperation with Niger in the fields of development and financial aid and military partnerships have been halted until further notice. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, more stories coming your way. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now is Zuma Nigeria, and stories from Nigeria says FEC holds media meeting. On Monday, the Federal Executive Council unfolded a 3-year economic revival plan to tackle the social and economic challenges affecting the country. The inaugural cabinet meeting, which was held at the council chambers of the presidential villa in Abuja, was presided over by President Bola Tinubu, who revealed his vision for economic growth, prosperity for all, and ending poverty. The president, while addressing the ministers, admonished them to achieve the first phase of his administration's 8-point agenda within 3 years. He asked the members of his cabinet to work hard to revive the country's economy because Nigeria is in a difficult time. The president said the ministers have the capacity to make a difference, highlighting that anyone thinking that appointments are fixed-term appointments were mistaken. The president expressed confidence that the carefully selected cabinet members knew that his government is a fresh one with a new approach and mandate to deliver for Nigeria without any lamentation or excuses. Tinubu noted that the country would depend on the experience, skills, intellect, and networking of those who had been appointed to make headway in the challenging times. He warned that the cabinet members were appointed to make headway in the challenging times and failure will not be explained away under his watch. The president reminded his cabinet that he's only one man and that their innovative thinking to solve problems will shape his leadership as a president who listens. And finally, on the news, Lagdo Dam, federal government cautions frontline states. Yesterday, once more, the federal government warned that numerous frontline states risk flooding in the next 7 days by the opening of the Lagdo Dam by the Cameroonian authorities. The dam is located along River Benue in the Republic of Cameroon and has a history of overflooding some Nigerian states that are along its navigation ways. The states that might be affected include Benue, Adamawa, Taraba, Benue, Nasarawa, Kogi, Anambra, Enugu, Edo, Delta, Rivers, and Bayelsa states. The flood warning alert was issued by Dr. Betta Edu, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, at a media briefing held at the instance of the Presidential Committee instituted by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu after the Federal Executive Council FEC meeting in Abuja yesterday. It was also resolved that the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, would chair the committee. Minister of Environment, Dr. Isiaq Salako, and Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation, Professor Joseph Utsev, were also members of the committee. Edu urged the Nigeria Governors Forum NGF to quickly upscale actions by making sure the evacuation of Nigerians from various communities to safer destinations. She said the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs will work with subnational and local government authorities towards the provision of shelters for the affected citizens. She noted that some of the people living in most of the communities who may be affected were afraid of losing their ancestral homes despite the warning. The minister emphasized the resolve of Tinubu-led administration toward putting necessary actions in place to safeguard the lives of the property of Nigerians across the country. On his part, Salako disclosed that the Ministry of Environment had activated needed flood warning alerts on hourly basis across the country and the water level of River Benue and River Niger, as well as vulnerability level of the affected areas. He noted that the ministry had designed veritable platform that will provide regular and real-time information to environmental correspondents on the flood warning alerts without waiting for the ministry. Salako also said recommendations on long-term measures solutions will be presented to the president as part of ongoing efforts towards finding lasting solution to the menace of flooding. The minister further stressed the resolve of the present administration towards working with the Cameroonian authorities toward assuring that the impacts of the release of Lagdo Dam floodgate do not lead to loss of lives and property while also mitigating damages. In his remarks, Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation, Professor Joseph Utsef, tasked Nigerians on the need to take precautionary measures toward clearing drainages while government at all levels play their roles. He assured that the ministry will, on the long run, ensure construction of dams as well as dredge rivers channels the country with a view to ending the menace of annual flooding, which has led to loss of several lives and properties. Adding that the ministry was also meeting with relevant stakeholders at various levels in the bid to controlling the waters as well as curbing the impacts of the flooding. The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, meanwhile, has allayed fears of Nigerians over the planned release of excess water from Lagdo Dam by Cameroon, which had warned that 9 states will be affected. Yesterday, the agency said it was working with critical stakeholders at the federal, state and local government levels to make sure that the release do not cause much negative effect on the low-lying communities along the states that will be affected. NEMA, in a statement released by its head of media and public relations, Ezekiel Manzo, stated that it had envisaged the release of the excess water from the Lagdo Dam and had taken note of the likely effects and considered it in preparations for mitigation and response to the 2023 flood alert. To refresh our memories, Russian forces destroyed Ukrainian drones. Japan faces harassment in China amidst Fukushima. U.S. to increase use of autonomous systems. Guatemala presidential victory certified, and Haitian police probe deadly church-led protests. And that's all on the news. Thanks for watching. I'm Lois Chiraki from all the crew members. Enjoy the rest of your day.